Welcome to Student of the Game podcast, where we help you master the fundamentals, fall in love with practice, and win at the game of life. I'm your host, Brad Noll. Welcome to the classroom. Welcome back to another episode of Student of the Game. Today I'm with my guy, Matt Ransbottom. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited for you to be here. Once a Don, always a Don. Matt and I
That's
go
right.
way back to the IPFW days. Matt is a pitcher, a baseball player, a student athlete, and
Was.
I feel that comment a little too much myself. But this is going to be a great episode. So you small business owners, here's why it's a great episode. Because there's a book called The E-Myth Revisited, and they said the reason that most small business owners fail is because they are gifted in a certain type of work, but then don't understand how to run the business. And so people who start businesses, they don't know how to run the business. They may be the technician. Like if you know everything about computers and you want to open a computer store, that doesn't necessarily mean because you know everything about computers, you don't know how to hire, you don't know how to fire, you don't know how to do marketing, you don't know how to do accounting. Matt is an HR manager at Omni, rebranded as Omni, but OmniSource. A lot of people in our area here in Northeast Indiana and throughout the world know what OmniSource is. And we're going to talk about hiring and firing and culture and values and all of the things that small business owners really do struggle with. So Matt, thanks for being here. Why don't you give the listeners a little background of who you are and how you got to become the HR manager at OmniSource?
Yeah, no, thanks again for having me. This is a long time coming as we got to know each other over the last handful of years. And our backgrounds went back further as we found out we were both Dons on a golf trip. And ever since I got a chance to know you more on a personal level and hearing your podcast, I think like we've always said is, hey, we got to hook up and drop a little knowledge if we can. So I'm really looking forward to being here today. And so a little bit about me. I currently work at Omni. It's a company part of Steel Dynamics, the scrap recycling side of the business. Been with the company almost 12 years. Before that, I worked at Menards. Actually, that was my first HR job out of school, out of IPFW. Originally from Warsaw. Grew up in as I say, God's country. Love that area. Still go back there a lot. Tiger, Warsaw Tiger. Yep, okay. Through and through. And so, I as I ventured back to Fort Wayne in the Omni role, like I said, about 12 years ago, I've got a chance to do a lot of different things, not just in the HR world, but still heavily involved with baseball and coaching. Technically, I just retired. We had a group of kids that kind of aged out, but we did that for the last 6-7 years. Teach at IPFW or now Purdue Fort Wayne, teach some different various HR classes as well. So try to be heavily involved with the community along with the work I do day in and day out. So.
Well, you're a great representative of Omni. I know I see you at a lot of functions and in the community. But let's go into this. Like so HR. Why don't it stands for human resources. But give the listeners like the things that you probably have forgotten. It's like, oh yeah, this is easy for you, but everybody else might struggle with HR. Hiring and firing, is that kind of like the basis of HR, or what does HR do?
Yeah, so great. HR finds you is what they say. So even when I was in my undergrad studies in organizational leadership, I had an HR function to it, and I really was drawn to the legal side of it. I had a teacher that came in, briefcase, and would tell us all these court cases and the employment side of it and how you treat people and how you document. And I was drawn to that, and I don't know why. And then the human side of it is, as you know, Brad, I love people. I love talking to people, being out and about. And so when I saw myself going down that path, trying to get some, what's the best way to say it? Some experience is tough in HR. And so that's why I said I worked at Menards and retail for a handful of years. And then that's when I really enjoyed it. And I decided to go back to grad school and study actually human resource development. And so you're right. My buddies or friends or family would be like, why HR? That's hire and fire. That's what people tend to think about. And you're right. There is a part of that, the onboarding process and how you bring people into your team or your company. And then, you have the offboarding side and the documentation, but there's a lot more in the middle to that really makes me excited about being in HR. And that's the culture pieces, working with your management team and developing people and training. And there's just so much to it. So yeah, there's a pro and con to every job, every position that you have. And so some companies have, HR departments that are a little different than maybe how we do it at Omni or other companies. Where it's, hey, we'll call HR when we need you. We need you in the stay in the corner, and
there's a problem.
We're going to call you when there's a problem, right? And what I like about our culture a lot is we're really forward facing with our employees because we want to have a lot of engagement, accountability, and when people tend to see you in a light that is positive, when you do have to have a difficult discussion with them, there was already some respect there. So it's over the last 14 or 15 years of my career, I find myself just really, I just enjoy it. Every day is different. And in my world, I travel a little bit. So there's always something on my plate and I'm always on the move. So I don't know if that helps to answer. There's a lot to it there. And I know we might dive into some more details here in a little bit.
We will dive into that because I think one of the things that I'm seeing right now as a small business owner is, like fractional HR departments or fractional CMOs where you can kind of hire a consultant that comes in and does that. And so I think a lot of the listeners probably have questions on, how do I hire the right person? How do I have core values? How do I build that culture that you're talking about that's so important when I don't have a department, specifically designed for that? So we'll get right into it. And before we get into the framework of our questions, I think a lot of the listeners want to know, like, what are some tips to hiring the right person? Like, let's say I've got a small business owner on here. Let's say there's a landscaper or somebody who is a financial planner, and it's like their business is growing. They know they need to hire somebody. What are some of your like pro tips on how to even start that process?
First, you need to know what you need. Right. So if you're a landscaper, like you're using as your example, it's like, okay, I have a need. And then it's how you advertise for that. And then when you get somebody that's interested in that role, once you understand the definition of what you're looking for, is hiring the right people for your fit and your culture. Right. You can ask questions. There's a lot of, as I always say, there's professional interviewers. There's times where we interview somebody and it's like, man, this person is just absolutely perfect. They hit every single thing that we're looking for from a cultural standpoint. They can do the job description, all of that. And then when they get in, they're a dud. And you're like, where'd we miss? And so it all sets up with at the beginning of what do you need? And then really concentrating on when you're meeting with somebody and you're interviewing them, what are those values that you are sticking to for your company and making sure that you're asking all of those questions through and through during the interview process, and trying to weed folks out from that standpoint. And there's just multiple things, as some companies have it. As you said, when you have HR departments, you might have some really structured onboarding practices. So it's like, can you use assessments? Can you find ways to weed out those maybe bad candidates versus the really good ones? And so that's what you have to focus in on, is what's important to you and your company and what are you looking for? Like sticking to the values, that helps a lot more than just, do they meet the job description?
Yeah, I tell this story a lot. I don't know how many times I've shared on the podcast, but David Hodgman, our office manager, when he got his job 5 years ago, I think we probably had 12 or 13 candidates apply for that job. Is the most ever. And I just was like, I was overwhelmed, and, we had the team to help do that. But one of the things that we did with him, or with that group, is all 12 or 13 people, we said, okay, here's our core values. Send us a video that's about a minute long, and tell us which core value you feel most attracted to, like which one represents you the most out of our 5 values. And I remember, out of everybody, David was the only one to say serve others. And we're in a service business. And so serve others is our number one core value for a reason. Like, it's number one. Like, we say it first, it's on our, material first. And that's the one he aligned with. And to this day, he embodies that. And that's the level in which, we successfully interviewed and then found somebody. But we've also interviewed wrong, right? And we've had people that have left. You talked about the hiring side a little bit. What about the firing side, right? I think a lot of times people hear be quick to fire, slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah, you hear all those cliches, and I think it's about what you learn. You really concentrating on why somebody's leaving, right? That's where you learn for your next hire. It's like, did we not meet their expectations? Did they not meet ours? Is there a way to do an exit interview with them? Like, hey, where did we miss with this? Because then you're building that side for the front end of the hire. And yeah, I'm not a big component of, hey, get out as soon as somebody does something wrong. Oh, we got to document and write them up and build this file. I mean, there's time to do that over time, but it's like the coaching. If you put so much effort into the front end of hiring somebody, you should have that care for them throughout their career. And again, that's a cultural piece too, right? So you saw that with David. He's been here for 5 years. It's like, okay, the standard is a standard now. Like he's making that more difficult for your next hire, which is that's a great thing. I always think about that Sean McVay. He always says the standard's the standard or the culture's the culture. And sometimes it's hard to put that in a jar and give that to people when you're interviewing. But when you are exiting somebody, hopefully you're trying to learn from it, not just, whatever the example is, they were always late. They never showed up on time. Well, why is that? Why were they not hungry to come into work and be driven? And so again, trying to understand, it's just going to make you better Brad, as you say, it's like, oh, if you don't have an HR department, that's okay. I mean, somebody is HR, whether that's your leadership of your small business. I mean, really trying to dive into, why you're hiring somebody and then why are you letting somebody go? Answering that why all the time is just going to continue to make you better.
Yeah. After 2 decades, more than 2 decades of, serving the real estate community here in Fort Wayne, one thing that we've learned is not everybody's designed to stay with us forever, and that's okay. There's been times where people have, moved on based on their choosing. And then there's been times where they've moved on and it was our choosing. And it's never easy. Like, do you have any tips for people that, maybe are going through this right now, or they need to let somebody go, or they need to hire somebody? And it's like, it's consuming, knowing that, okay, I've got to take on this HR responsibility and I'm not trained, in HR. I mean, are there any tips for that?
Yeah, I think we work with different attorneys and again, being in an HR department, we're always trying to answer the why. Like why are you at that point? Have you given them, do they know why they're going to be offboarded? Like, again, if you just showed up and I just said, Brad, you work for me, and I say, hey, today's the day and we gotta cut you loose, and you don't know why, that's not good for anybody, right? You didn't document. So as you take your notes and if you have issues with people, hopefully you have a culture that you have a relationship with people where if they're not doing something or they're not up to the expectations of the role or whatever, it could be performance, if they don't know that they are in jeopardy of losing their job, that's not fair to them, right? Just as it's not fair to you. So I think taking time to answer that why, like, again, why are you hiring this person? Why are they your top candidate? And you're never going to go wrong if you can answer that. You're always going to hire the right person from that standpoint. And it's the same thing as the offboarding or discipline that you're doing is why are we doing this? And then being fair and consistent, right? That's the other thing that makes it sometimes a little difficult because you don't want to have pick a favoritism. You don't want to pick the age, race, religion, sex, origin. And now you could have some situations on your hands that you weren't treating everybody fair and consistent. So that's a message that we have as not just in my company, but just in general as HR folks is trying to answer that why.
That's big. I think the other thing too, and maybe I'm answering our first question is like, let's talk about the fundamentals of HR. But, I think another question that comes up a lot of times for us as our team continues to evolve and grow and continue to experience different, opportunities is job descriptions. Right. I mean, I think people talk about delegation. This is something that some consultants of mine have shared with me is the difference between delegation and abdication. And I think if you're looking at an org chart, everybody talks about delegating and moving up and being promoted. And I think what happens is small business owners get delegation and abdication confused. A lot of times they think they're delegating when they give somebody, a task to do. Well, that's abdicating to somebody else. Delegating is I'm going to give you this task, but I'm going to come back and check on you, and there's going to be a fluid circle, and we're going to work on this together. But talk a little bit about job descriptions a little bit, and you talked about why, and I think the job description might be the next piece that answers that. But if somebody's listening right now and they're trying to write a job description, maybe even for themselves, so that they know what they do every single day, so that they know what winning looks like. Before we hit record today, you talked about off air that, having your team members know what winning looks like, or, a path to grow is vital. So how does the job descriptions play into that?
Yeah, it's a great question because I mean, just think about it. If you're listening to us talk about this and you're driving down the road and you're like, hey, I hired somebody and you didn't have anything that had details to the job, well, then how can you hold them accountable to that job and the expectations and so on and so forth? Now, job descriptions can be a little different depending on the company. I mean, if it's a company heavy manufacturing like ours, we've got here's the job requirements. And then we also have like lifting and things because we want to make sure that they can do the job and be,
Mm-hmm.
physically able to do it. But you sit down at whatever the position is, it's an HR position. There are requirements that say, hey, these are your tasks that you're doing and you're held accountable to doing those. That also makes sure that you're falling in line with getting things done. Again, accountability plays a big role into that. Um, it can be difficult to write a job description if you don't understand the role too. Like what are you expecting this person to have? So if you're going to hire somebody new and you're saying, hey, we have a new role, we understand it's going to be somebody in accounting for us, right? They're going to do the billing for us. Okay, well what's that role mean? What's it going to take? Is it a 40-hour job? Is it it's only 20 hours, so it could be a part-time type job? And then again, what are those bullet points that list out that accounts receivable pay, whatever the accounting position is made up?
Mm-hmm.
What are those job details? Now, again, it can grow from that, and that's where I know we were talking kind of before we got on here, Brad. It's when somebody goes above and beyond that job description, then that's when you're like, oh, maybe they need something more. Maybe we need to find a way to grow them horizontally and give more to them. But there's also people that want to just come in and get to those bullet points of the job description. That's okay too. I mean, you need people that just want to come in and, as I say, air quotes, like punch the clock. They want to come in, do their job. They know those bullet points, expectations are set. It's clear. You can hold them accountable. I mean, man, you definitely want those people. But then you also want the people that push that envelope of that job description, saying, hey, I want to take on more. I want to be involved with this or that. And then it's always okay to go back and review those job descriptions time and once a year, every other year, to say, hey, has this job changed? Maybe it's worth more. Maybe it needs to be whatever it could be. I mean,
Sure.
I think it's, if you don't have a job description, you're kind of shooting from the hip as you're trying to hire. And then again, as we talked about the air quotes, hire and fire. Now, okay, why are you terminating them? If they're not doing this part of the job. Did they know? That's not really fair to them either, right? If you're just saying, hey, show up 8 to 5 and this is what I want you to do. So there's a hand in hand to that, the whole job description piece.
I love how you talked about that, and we haven't talked about values yet, but I think that's something that I keep hearing over and over that you're talking about, which tells me you guys definitely do a great job with that. But I have a tip actually for somebody whose their business is growing. Maybe they're trying to figure out I need to hire my first employee or maybe my 10th employee, or it doesn't matter. But what I did when I knew I needed to bring somebody else on is I created, and I got this from a buddy of mine who's a realtor in Austin, Texas. And I sat down with him for breakfast in San Diego at a conference one day, and he goes, all right, let's work on this. So I took a piece of paper and I built it into 4 quadrants. And the top right quadrant was things that I love to do that were profitable. The bottom right quadrant was things that I didn't like to do that were profitable. The top left quadrant was things that I like to do that were not profitable. And then the bottom left was things that I didn't like to do that were not profitable. And so I started plotting out everything that I do throughout my day, my week, my month, my year into this graph, which then started for me to realize, like, where do I need to be spending my time, the highest and best use of my time. So for me personally, that's just a tip that I've done. I know, Lindsay has done that with her Noll Team Interiors. She's actually working on that right now. So when we get together for our December to Remember, we're kind of like we are elevating both of our job descriptions as we move into the new year. Anything to add to that?
No, I think it's great. I think just understanding what you need, and sometimes we don't know ourselves as well as we think we do. So taking exercises like you just did of saying, hey, what do I need or what am I missing, both personally, as your team, as your company, I think it's great to do that more often than not just wait, it's year end. It's like, hey, what is that something you could do each week, each month, each quarter? So I think it's great.
Yeah,
Great
one
advice.
of the things that whether that idea is great or not, the best part of it is what Coach Kaufman called forced reflection. So if you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, you're growing your business, a lot of times we don't stop and slow down. And if you felt a certain way when I just said that, it's probably because you need to stop and slow down, right? I mean, we all need to pause, and we need to all have some forced reflection. Preparing for this podcast today, I'm forcing myself to reflect, interviewing my guy, Matt Ransbottom. You're an expert in your field, and I'm just trying to make it to the next day when it comes to our core values, our culture, our hiring, and our firing. So, thanks for being here.
No, man, I love it. This is great.
Student of the Game is brought to you by Noll Team Real Estate. Our mission is to eradicate mediocre real estate transactions. On your largest financial purchase, you shouldn't have to deal with average. We do this by helping you save time, reduce your stress, and helping you keep as much money in your pocket as we can. You can help us out by introducing us to your friends or family who want to make confident real estate decisions, whether buying, selling, building, or investing. At Noll Team Real Estate, we are connected to a group of realtors who sell 1 in every 8 homes in North America. If you know someone moving out of your area, there's a great chance we can connect them to somebody we know, like, and trust. Remember, relationships win. Now back to the show. All right, let's get into this framework. So, mastering the fundamentals. What are fundamental about HR? What do the people need to know as fundamentals about human resources?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's going back to the comment you just made about understanding and knowing yourself and aligning what your company goals and values are with the HR team's goals and values. I guess it's just as simple as that, is trying to understand who you are and what you can do to help. Again, HR is not a profit center, right? We're a cost center, if I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. Meaning we're a drain on the company. We're not making money for the company. So it's like, how can we support those that are making money for the company? And it's making, whether it's, just being out and being with the people, answering questions, benefits things. And again, onboarding, offboarding, all of the things that we've talked about so far is just understanding that what you can bring to the table. And I think what you were talking about, reflection, is so big on what your day-to-days are. Because again, in a world of HR, it can be thankless position at times, because when the phone rings, there's not a lot of, hey, thanks for everything you're
Great
doing.
Job.
It's, hey, how you doing on this Thursday? Oh, by the way, we have this issue. I want your input on it, right? So
Sure.
when the phone's ringing or you're getting emails, it's being responsive, and it's easy to let a day just absolutely get, hey, I want to get these 5 things done, and you don't even look at that piece of paper. When you get it by the end of the day, you're like, man, where'd the day go? And so I think reflection is huge. What you were just saying is, I think everybody needs to have that kind of, whether it's at the end of the day, end of the week, it's like, hey, what did I accomplish? What did I do really well? What did I struggle with? And journal and write down. And then how do you attack the next week? And little off on the tangent there, Brad, but that's what you get when you ask me on the pod here.
I think it's great, because here's the thing, Matt. This is not, and I have to remind people this is not a sports podcast. But I feel like I had an MBA from the locker room. Like, I got my master's in business from the locker room, and I learned a bunch of stuff. And so the things you're saying right now, we're kindred spirits, because I hear a lot of, how I was raised and what I learned through sports showing up in what you're saying. Before we move on to the next question, past the fundamentals, I mentioned this, but I want to come back to it. So values. So talk about values a little bit, because through everything we've talked so far, it's evident that Omni has values. Your HR team, I know several of those people. Shout out to the people that we know over there.
Right.
But your team and your department seem to have values, and you seem to be forward facing, you said, and engage with a lot of your employees. Talk about values and how culture are impacted.
Well, without the team that we have, we all work together so well, and it comes down to, again, when we're bringing somebody into our group, we take a lot of time, as we should, as I've talked about, is that we want people to be aligned with the same values, ethics that we have, and showing up, doing the right thing when no one's looking, right? All those cliches, but it falls into place, especially in an HR type position, because there's a lot of times that we're we're crossing paths throughout the week. Like we're not seeing each other, just like you said, Brad. It's like, hey, your group, if they're not here very often, so you got to have trust, and they have to understand your values and your expectations. And in having the trust into my team is everything, because if we get something thrown at us that we're not ready for, we sit down, we talk about it, and I know it's going to get done, and it's going to be done at a high level. And I think that just goes. That's just building a team. And no matter what, if it's like you said, it's not a sports podcast, but if there's a chink in the armor in your team, no matter if it's a basketball, you can't play basketball with four guys if they're going to find the weakness of the fifth one and they're going to attack at the other team. And so it's the same thing with our group. Is everybody's so strong and self-driven, and we have to reflect and we support each other, and that's what makes it so great. And again, we're unique if we have an HR department in our group, right, or in our company. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has that. So again, it kind of goes back to that support, understanding, asking all the right questions. And as you talk about values, it goes back to the hiring. It's not about, can this person do this job, right? If I post a job, let's just use HR for example, and we want to hire an HR generalist, call it, and we post the job out online, and you get 100 resumes, I could hire somebody without interviewing them. I'm like, okay, if it was just based on the job description, mm-hmm. okay, they have this experience, they went to this school and this education, blah blah blah, and it goes on and on.
Check the box.
Right. That's why you have interviews, is to find out, are they a cultural fit? It's great you have to ask all the right questions, of course. But really, I heard this a long time ago, and I think this is so great. So I'll give this advice to the listeners and the one viewer or two viewer. Yep. I don't know how many you got. Hopefully, I got a face for radio.
It's going to be a lot now that you're on here.
So when you're sitting down and you're trying to make a decision on hiring somebody, and let's say you have two really good candidates and you're splitting hairs, sit down and again, this was a VP of HR that worked at Omni and SDI many, many years ago. And it's stuck with me for a long time, is if you took this person to a baseball game, are you hoping that it goes to extra innings because you want to spend so much time with them, or are you hoping it rains in the first inning and to get out of there? And when I look at that analogy, it's kind of interesting because, again, you spend so much time with the people you work with, probably more than your family. Is you got to be able to trust them. Do they meet your values? Do they, all the expectations you have? And then at the end of the day, do you want to go get a beer with them after work, and spend more time with them? And I think when you put so much time and emphasis on the front part of the hiring and that interview process, you don't have to worry as much on that back end of the offboarding, hopefully, if it all works out.
Wow, that's fantastic advice. Same. I mean, if you don't go to baseball games, but you're a golfer, same thing.
That's right.
Do you want to play 18 or you want to go just 9? I hope it gets rained out, or are we going to run this back, 36 tomorrow? So that's right. That's fantastic advice.
Yeah, play that emergency 9, right? Yeah, I mean, do you want it? Yeah, I think it's another way to look at it too. As folks are listening to this and they go back to their teams maybe, and they're saying, hey, maybe I heard this one random thing. It's about, do you want to spend time with that person? Do you want to go to war with them? Do you want to go down the street? Mm-hmm. One of my old baseball coaches at IPFW said that too. Like, hey, your team, do they have your back when you're going down a dark alley? Kind of a silly way to look at it, but it's like, if you're going to say, hey, let's just hire the person, give them a chance. You have a chance that it's not going to work out too. So, so again, I know your question was more based on the values, but I think trying to answer that with those examples kind of fill the gap.
Well, and one of the things we do, if you've been a home buyer with us and you've gone through kind of our initial consultations, one of the things that we do, as opposed to maybe some other professions, people in our profession, is, we don't talk about necessarily our sales and our awards and our trophies and all of our recognition. We actually, one of the second slides in our presentation is our core values. And so what I do is when we meet somebody for the first time or they're a past client, I'll sit down and I'll say, I'm not certain, but I'm pretty positive you don't care about the awards that we've won, the number of homes that we've sold. You just want to know 2 things. Can I trust you, and are you good at what you do?
Right.
And so the fact that we're sitting here together and you've been referred to us and introduced to us, I find it important that I'm going to talk about our 5 values. And I go over the 5 values that we have in our company and in our team. And I say, if I'm going to hire somebody, I kind of want to know what that person values. And so this is our way of showing you what we value and what's important to us. And if you feel like we would be a good fit, we'll keep going on with this presentation, and we would love to serve you when it comes to buying or selling a home. And so we lead the presentation with values, just so that our clients can understand who they're working with. And I think that that's so important. That was just an addition to what you're saying. That wasn't really to add any more value.
No, it was great value. And I do want to give the Noll team a little plug. I know that you've worked with a lot of people that I know and helped them sell houses, buy houses, all that. I mean, the TLC, the attention to detail, the follow-ups that you guys do, I would hope that you get that feedback, but like I see it in real time with, like you said, there's people that that I work with that you guys have helped them. And like they become billboards for you guys, which that's the way to do it. It's again, my hat's off to you guys, and hopefully whenever I go to buy that next house, I know where I'm coming. I can tell you that. So
I appreciate that. That's something that's important for us. So if you're an HR department in town and you're listening to how a great HR department works, we actually do prefer meeting with HR teams because it's something that we give community tours. Like, and I don't want to give a shameless plug here, but one of the things that we believe is we can be an extension of an HR team. You want to hire somebody. We want to sell Fort Wayne. We want to sell Northeast Indiana. Just as bad as you guys do, and help communicate to to the talent that you're trying to bring in. And so that's something that's a passion project of ours. But let's talk about falling in love with practice.
Love it.
You
want to talk about practice?
Come on. We're talking about practice. Let's talk about what are the things you love to do that really nobody sees, right? I mean, so I get on here and I have a small business. We hire, we fire, we lead, we have core values. This is what most people know, right, about HR at a surface level. But what are the things that you absolutely love to do? How are you falling in love with the practice of human resources?
Yeah, the grind. Like I was saying earlier, HR can be a position that is not for everyone. Meaning, like it depends on the company. I mean, again, our company, our culture, our great, it's so great. But there is a piece that it's a grind. Like it can just, people need you at a level sometimes that you're like, man, this just like the phone doesn't stop. And then when you step back and you realize that I might be helping with, I don't know how many locations. It could be, 20 some locations over a handful of different states. If a manager's calling me, I could get that same question 19 more times in the day. And if you don't love the grind and want to be, alongside the management team and trying to help and being involved, it can be tough. It can wear you out. And so what I love is that I keep saying the word grind. It's like every day is different. There's a lot to be done. I travel a lot. I get a chance to see different facilities and work with different people. And so just making sure that I'm connected with my schedule. I love that at the end of the day is, hey, what do I have tomorrow? I get excited about that. I get an opportunity to come on this podcast. Tomorrow's a whole nother day. And it feels like practice. It's like the game is easy, as they say, right? If you're locked in and you give it all your time during the practice part of it, it makes when the lights come on, it makes it easier, right? And so, I guess what I'm alluding to a little bit is, putting yourself in situations that you're learning, you're trying to adapt, but being approachable and visible to your leadership team goes a long way. So when that phone rings, they know that you're going to be there to help them and help solve that situation. Or it can be good things too, being involved with cookouts and all the fun stuffs and parties and, like our Christmas party that's coming up, like that's a blast. And my wife, I know she'll listen to this. She'll kind of roll her eyes. Like she says, I love going to that, but you're always in HR mode. Because I want to talk and I want to see people and I want to be engaging with them. So, when you kind of ask me that question about, falling in love with practice, it feels like that's every day, and trying to find better ways to better yourself, our team, and keep pushing us to the next level, year in and year out.
I think a lot of the listeners here subscribe to this philosophy that relationships win. Right. And at the end of the 100%. Day, relationships win. And so if you're listening to this, or you've even listened to multiple episodes, you hear a central theme with the guests that I bring on is because we share a lot of the same values. And what I'm hearing, what you absolutely love to do is, most people think HR is, pushing papers like, hey, sign this employee document. Hey, you're fired. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, you're getting written up. Here's your pink slip. Or I'm going to send you your benefits package. Mm-hmm. But what you're explaining is you're actually explaining how you and your HR team are building relationships to keep your culture at an all-time high. Because, let's not, we haven't even talked about retention yet. Like, losing somebody and hiring is expensive. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes resources. And so what you're saying is, what I'm hearing you say, Matt, is you go the extra mile to invest in the relationships of the people in the company so that you can be in tune with what they're going through in their life.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard you say it on multiple podcasts about relationships win. I mean, that's it. That's what it comes down to, especially in HR. I mean, we have to be hand in hand with our employees, our management team, the leadership team. And if they don't know who we are, just step back and be like, oh, I never see that person. They're not going to call you. You're not going to know what's going on. And so I think relationships just in general are huge. I mean, the community, the involvement, we do a lot of that stuff with our team. It's not just at our company. We want to be involved with many different things. And again, that goes back to the testament of our company and that culture that we have. But yeah, I can't say it enough is, pushing my team, myself, to make sure that we're visible out and about. And that's where it goes back to that, where I say grind is, people want you. They want the more you get involved. I was just telling Sophia, she works in our team, that, you start to get overwhelmed with things. They're like, man, the phone just doesn't stop ringing. And I said, the best part of all of that is now that she's 1 year with our company, is she's showing her value and people are leaning on her. That's a good thing. Build relationships over. You never know when that person, you need them for something else in life or something at work. And it's just never to burn that bridge is such an important part, of building relationships. So yeah, I love when I hear it when you say it on your pod and other people come on and talk about it, because that's life, building those relationships.
Well, what you just described with Sophia is, it's funny because I go back to my, playing days, and our coaches, they would always say, like, if we're not yelling at you, you don't matter. Right? Like
right.
if we're yelling at you, it's because we're trying to get the best out of you because we need you. And if we're not yelling at you or we're not paying attention to you, it's because you're probably irrelevant. These are my words, and they didn't really say those things. But what I'm hearing again is it goes back to understanding, your team member like Sophia is like, okay, her phone is ringing because she's adding value. If her phone wasn't ringing, or if you're not solving problems all day long, you're not adding any value. So I think that's a key piece to understanding the work that we all get to do every single day. So
I will say too, I think that's a great point. What you brought up using the sports analogy is, like, coaches always push the better players because they know that they could handle it. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think it's the same way in the world of business, is people that do above and beyond that job description, or as you bring them on and you're onboarding them and you can see that they can do more, we naturally want to give them more. And that's a balance too, right? You don't want to push somebody, again, in the sports world nowadays, NIL and everything like that. People are going to be like, hey, I'm out. So it's a fine line, but it's great to sit down and recognize that and say, hey, these are good things. Like the coach yelling at you in your example, you might be going home every day going, man, the coach hates me, and this is not working out. It's the other way around in the coach's mind, right? So again, building that relationship, going back and saying, hey, why are you on me all the time? It's the same thing with the examples that we've given with the work stuff. It's like, sometimes your best employees are the ones that you tend to put so much more on, but you got to have that reality check, because you don't want them to say, hey, I get a phone call from another company and now they're out the door. And again, you didn't realize that you pushed them too far. So I just thought that was great when you bring that up, Brad, because I think that hit a nerve for me too. So
well, and this is, I tell my wife I'm allergic to average. It's just something about me. I just don't want average around. But I heard a quote one time, and one of the things that I've tried to adopt myself as I'm helping coach and lead team members is, I really tend to gravitate toward the philosophy of, average people want to be praised. Good teammates. Okay. So average teammates want to be praised. Good teammates want to be pushed. Elite teammates, they want feedback. Mm-hmm. And it's because they're hungry to grow and they're hungry to get better. And average team members, don't have necessarily that bent to grow and want feedback. They want to be, hey, did you see I do a good job? Praise me. What awards am I up for? And so that's just something that's always stuck with me is being able to recognize, okay, when somebody's wanting praise, what do they really mean? When somebody, wants to be pushed, what does that mean? And when somebody's really asking, like, hey, how can I get better? What can I do? Then that's just a sign of, great culture, great values. As we get close to wrapping up, we always like to say, what does winning at the game of life look like for you? We talked about mastering the fundamentals through HR. We talked about falling in love with practice and the things that you do, the behind the scenes that makes your team at Omni different and better. But for Matt, what does winning at the game of life look like?
Man, it's such a good question. And I think it goes back to, taking time to kind of reflect. It's like, if you're trying to keep score and you're like, hey, where am I at? Or you're looking at your peers and or friends and, oh man, this guy, he keeps getting promoted. What am I falling behind? Or, I use the example too, 12 years at Omni. I'm like, I'm proud of that. I've been with the company a long time. I've had people be like, man, you got to move 2 years. You got to get out. You got to go make more money. And it's like, well, what's important to you at the end of the day? And so what winning looks like for me is, blessed to have an opportunity to work for a great company and to understand that it's not a charity. I don't just get to show up and just do what I want. There's expectations and being held accountable. And I'm just so fortunate to work for this company and the opportunities that led me to get here. And then, obviously my wife and my friends and my family and having so much support and whether it's in the community, doing things like this with you, Brad, it's just, sometimes you just got to take a reality check and just realize, man, what you have in front of you and what you're doing today can be so impactful. And sometimes, again, the analogy that you were talking about, being average and how people want to be coached is sometimes, you're like, man, am I in the right lane? Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And a lot of times you are. You just got to take that step back just to really think about that. And so I, again, kind of, hopefully that answers. It's a tough question. I think it's an awesome question. I know you've asked it so many times, and it's not an easy question for me to answer from that standpoint. But I will say it this too, is, years ago when I was coming out of college, and everybody can relate to that story, is you get your undergrad and they're like, yeah, you're going to make X amount of money and you're going to have C-suite and go get them, and then you're like, well, where's my job? And then I got out of school and I really struggled with getting interviews, and it was just kind of as the downturn of the economy in 08, 09 there, that time frame. And I just remembered going, man, I wish somebody would give me a chance. Like, just put me in, coach. Like, give me that opportunity. And when I got it at Menards, I worked there for, like I said, 2 or 3 years, and it was like, an opportunity came up at Omni. Can I share it really quick?
Please,
really quick of how I ended up at Omni. I think it's a really cool story.
That's awesome.
So 2 years I'm working there, and I decided to go to school at Indiana State, doing it online. And I really like this HR gig. And so my now wife, we were dating at the time, and she's like, hey, you should come back to Fort Wayne. I'm living in Warsaw. And you come back every weekend, you see me, your friends or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just, I like this Menards thing. Like, I'm the old school, my parents, and I'm like, I'm just going to work here for 40 years. So to humor her, I said, hey, I'll Google search HR jobs Fort Wayne. And I did. And it says OmniSource and HR generalist role. And I'm like, well, why not? I'll apply to appease her. They're not going to call me. And then like 3 or 4 days later, I get a phone call, and like, I think I went back like 3 different times, met with, I don't know, all the people that I'm working with today or over time. And it just like all works out. So when I go back to the winning at life, it's like, sometimes the stars align and you may want it quicker than what you want, but sometimes just be patient, just stay to the grind and go from there.
You heard it here first. What does winning at the game of life look like for Matt? It's listening to your wife.
Absolutely. There you go.
Well, that's a great segue to finish this. This has been a lot of fun, and I know this episode is helping a lot of small business owners out there trying to navigate, the ins and outs of what human resources actually is and could be. And you've shown us through the work that you do at Omni and your group, how you make it fun and engaging. And, going back to our flagship, statement that relationships win, and you guys do a great job. And thanks for sharing what winning at the game of life looks like. I think, as I've asked this question to every guest, the thing that I've learned is I think winning at the game of life, it definitely looks different for everybody. but I think it also looks different in different seasons of our life. There's seasons of my life that winning, takes on a different shape than it did, 5 years ago. And 5 years from now, winning might look different for me. And so I love hearing all the answers, no matter what they are, because we're all in a different season. So as we wrap up, the kids say, give this man his flowers, or send him their flowers, which just means the accolades and appreciation. And, being that this is a podcast built around, relationships, winning, who are some of the relationships in your life that you want to send some flowers to that have helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah. There's so many people, and it starts with my wife, Brooke, and she gives so much support, whether it's at work and I travel for work, or events and the community involvement, different things I do. She's all supportive. It's so great in our relationship. As you said, it's all about relationships, and she's the best. I love her. And and I think about my family and my friends and people that have pushed me to get to where I'm at, whether it's career or, sports or whatever it could be. And my HR team and the group, my boss, and just our whole group at Omni and SDI and all the people I work with. It makes it fun to, again, very fortunate. Winning at the game of life, as you say, is when you get to go to battle every day with the people that you want to, and you're fortunate enough to have a great team. It makes your life so much easier. So it's a lot of fun, and I know I'm missing tons of people. I'll throw some flowers at Brad Noll. I could go on and on. I got tons of people, but I appreciate you letting me come on and ramble a little bit, and hopefully I give a little help and support and some ideas and thoughts as we go to the listeners. And Brad, you're more than welcome to share my contact information if people have some specific questions or want to dive deeper into whatever we were covering. And I'm all for it. I love it.
You're generous. I appreciate that. Matt Ransbottom, now an alumni, a student of the game. If this episode has helped you, go ahead and screenshot this, tag us on social media. And like Matt said, get a hold of me if you have any HR questions. I know I have had some in the past, and I've reached out, and like I say, you're always generous with your time. So thanks for being a guest today, and keep up the great work at Omni and what you guys are doing in the community.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to Student of the Game podcast. Whatever game you are playing, I'm cheering for you. See you in the next class.